Cessnock City Council recently conducted a survey asking residents what it could improve. It was told in no uncertain terms that youth services in the community were terrible. The council area has been largely ignored by private enterprise. There are virtually no entertainment facilities such as cinemas or bowling alleys. The local pools are a big attraction, but of course only in summer.
Usually I just walk around down the street, go for a walk up the road, stay at home, read books or watch videos most of the time. There's nothing really that much to do.
Well, we have some vandalism, not only from young people, you might say, but we've got some underage drinking. We have some drug problems. I wouldn't say it's rampant, but it's certainly existing, and we're not trying to sweep under the carpet. But when you look at our community and you think, well, there's not really an alternative to that.
Cessnock Council hasn't the finances to create large entertainment venues itself, so has turned to the people for help. Every community organisation in the area was invited to a brainstorming session today to discuss ways of addressing a range of issues confronting youth, such as homelessness, transport, unemployment and entertainment. 120 people responded and spent the day formulating ideas and proposals which will be taken back to their own organisations.
If we're looking at a whole range of local organisations, if they all do one thing for youth in 1990, we'll have a pretty good program for young people.
Horticulturalists at the Department of Agriculture's Narara Research Station have been developing dwarf strains of kangaroo paw and fantails over the past 4 years. The plants are designed to take on the fresh-cut flower market, providing bright colour and up to 6 weeks longer life than cut flowers. The research began with extensive work in the laboratory to produce tissue cultures. The genetically superior plants were then grown. Private enterprise came into the project, providing funds for further development and purchasing marketing rights. Horticulturalist Ross Worrell says both types of plant have wide international appeal.
Yeah, they've been remarkably ignored by Australians, but unfortunately not by the rest of the world to a significant extent. So we've got to get on the bandwagon, we've got to get on it now to really, I guess it's a bad word to use, but exploit our native flora.
The first 30,000 plants will be released domestically and internationally before Christmas, with production expected to reach the hundreds of thousands by early next year. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
If seeing is believing, then the next best thing to visiting schools is watching a video. Regional Director for Education Alan Beard believes the video, called Hunter Highlights, will help give the Hunter region a winning edge in persuading specialised personnel to move to this area. He says parents often need to consider education standards when changing jobs and moving interstate. With the video, they can get a much clearer impression of local schools than by telephone or brochures alone. The video was launched last night at the Hunter Technology Centre. It comes with a guide and brochures and will cost $150.
The dual-carriage commuter train was packed with passengers bound for homes in Fassifern when the trip was suddenly interrupted just after 5 o'clock. The train driver, a Tanambit man in his 40s, was the only person injured. He was taken to Wallsend Hospital suffering possible whiplash. It's understood the train cabin clipped the truck's trailer, which spun around into a traffic signal light. Police have interviewed the driver of the truck, who was allowed to leave the scene. In the meantime, rush hour traffic on Toronto's main road, Carey Street, is banked up several kilometres but moving slowly through the accident site.
The The men's second round ended in sensation with Chewy Rayner from the United States receiving an interference call for this collision with Australia's Garth Dickinson. A few waves later and Chewy again appears to interfere with the Australian. The judges then had no hesitation in wiping Chewy's best wave score. The loss of such valuable points dropped him to fourth in the heat and bundled out. The first round of the Coke women's trials also got underway in a 1 metre swell that had dropped off from yesterday. The women's events are mainly dominated by Australians, so it wasn't a surprise to see every heat won by an Aussie, with just as many through to the repechage. Merewether natural footer Melissa Ladd flew the flag for the locals in the repechage, but couldn't pull out enough manoeuvres to get into the main event. With the women's event over, the surfing style on the comeback trail, longboards, took to the water. Newcastle rider Mark Hancock showed plenty of flair to take the heat, ahead of Merewether legend Martin McMillan. McMillan displayed plenty of style and had the crowd asking why he hasn't joined the full-time professional tour. A late entrant in the longboards was Brazil's Fabio Gouveia. Fabio, who surfed so well yesterday on the shortboards, asked for a little divine intervention to help out. But unfortunately the help didn't arrive and Fabio was bundled out.
The book is the Area Health Service's latest campaign to try to turn teenagers away from drugs. The idea is that each person who signs the book pledges to stay in control with alcohol and to remain a non-smoker. Lord Mayor John McNaughton launched the book along with champion surfers Richard Marsh, Dave McCauley and Pauline Menzer. Leading women's surfer Wendy Botha says drugs aren't trivial and if children want to become world-class athletes, drugs must be avoided.
For me, that's been my whole life. I've never ever smoked anything, and cigarettes, marijuana, either way, and hardly ever drink. You know, cold beer on a hot day is about as far as I get. So to me, that's my whole life has been lived really clean, and geez, I certainly think that a lot more kids should live that way.
The Better Body book will be at Surfest on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and those signing the book could also win a $500 autograph surfboard.
A full early morning tide kept conditions small and placed pressure on riders to take advantage of every wave, often causing confusion. An early morning casualty of the small surf was Michael Barry, who has been running hot throughout the trials, but he caught only one wave. Although it was a dynamic ride, it wasn't enough. By the time Dave MacArthur made his quarter-final appearance, the tide was out and the waves were picking up. MacArthur began the heat with good consistent rides to the edge, not allowing the rocks to faze him. But others, like American Chris Brown, pushed it right to the limit and were lucky to come away uninjured. With a stack of good waves under his belt and clearly in front, the judges imposed a paddling interference on MacArthur for this apparent incident with Chris Brown. The loss of vital points dropped him to third and out of the semi-finals. Terrigal's Ross Clark-Jones showed all the flair touring on the international circuit brings to push his way through to Sunday's semis. Tomorrow's action gets underway with Nicky Wood, Simon Law, Matt Hoy and Luke Egan all in round one of the men's main event. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
Mr Barrack said the Trades Hall Council was warned by the Pilots Federation a fortnight ago of the likely outcome of the airline's court action.
Quite obviously that now the decision has been made against the pilots. It is there, the decision has been taken, it's on the books, and it's a decision that can be used in industrial disputation at any given time by any employer in the future.
Planned New South Wales anti-strike legislation was on the agenda at last night's Trades Hall Council meeting. Yesterday's Victorian Supreme Court decision inevitably came up for discussion. Mr Barrack said the development cannot go unchallenged and that if protest action is sufficiently widespread and coordinated, it can be successful.
Where you have bad legislation and bad judicial decisions, that act against the democratic rights of the trade union movement, then they need to be challenged.
The state government plans to adopt a compulsory pre-licence training system already operating successfully in South Australia. Riders will complete a 7-hour training program before receiving a learner's permit, with a further 6 hours training required before a provisional licence is issued. The scheme will operate from 35 centres across the state.
We plan to provide compulsory training for drivers before they get on the bike. At the moment, the testing is very brief, and we believe it leads to fatalities on the road. Last year we had 123 rider-related fatalities, which undoubtedly is the lowest we've had since 1972, but it's still too high.
The announcement in Gosford today of the government's rider training program coincided with the launch of the state's first road user education unit, an initiative of the Motorcycle Riders Association.
What we're trying to do is tell people that road safety is everybody's responsibility, and it's not just a bike safety week, 1 week a year. It's a 24 hours, 365-day a year responsibility of everybody that uses our road system.
The unit will visit shopping centres, doubling as a mobile classroom for interested community groups. Leslie Robinson, NBN News. Natasha Phillips was at Surfest on Thursday afternoon. She was last seen at 5:30 p.m. near the intersection of Zara Street and Shortland Esplanade. It's believed she was then planning to return to the beach. From there, little is known. Jeffrey Phillips has searched for 2 days for any sign of his daughter, speaking to hundreds of teenagers.
So I've got Natasha's picture. I've been showing the picture around, up and down Hunter Street, in hotels, clubs, anywhere where young people might go, the fun parlours, but along the beach here. The kids have shown a lot of interest and said they'd help, but I haven't seen, or they haven't seen Tasha either.
Would it be out of character for Natasha to simply leave home, run away?
Yes, it is. Natasha's a person that normally stays at home. She's never been a person to go out often, and then if she did go out, she was always home well and truly before dark.
Police believe Natasha may have met with some friends from Wickham, but as time goes by with no strong leads, their concern is increasing.
We are hoping that she is out there around Newcastle somewhere with somebody, and if she is, we'd only hope that those people would contact the Newcastle police.
Natasha is 165 centimetres tall, of solid build, with hazel eyes and short auburn-coloured hair. She was last seen wearing black bicycle shorts, a black singlet and a silver locket.
She's got to be somewhere, or somebody's got to know something. If only I could just find out of somebody just that they've seen her since Thursday night, that'd be a help.
The money will be spent over 5 years on damaged areas surrounding the wastewater treatment works, in particular the coastal sand dunes, the work site, spoil dump and access road and entrance off Scenic Drive. The plant is surrounded by the Glenrock State Recreation Area. Recently, the Water Board donated over 125 hectares of its land, and once the secondary treatment plant has been completed in June 1992, another 51 hectares of Burwood Beach will also become part of the Glenrock Park. The remaining 37-hectare buffer zone will then be leased to the park. The Water Board also contributed $15,000 towards a draft management plan, expected to be completed in around 12 months. This will designate car parking, picnic areas and walking trails.
We believe it will make a very significant passive family recreation area with a magnificent isolated beach for the people of Newcastle, where families can come down and enjoy the beauties of the Glenrock State Recreation Area.
Eventually, the park will cover 500 hectares of coastal land from Merewether South to Dudley, something the Merewether Coastal Protection Group has been lobbying hard for over the past few years.
It's one step closer to the reality we've been fighting for, yes.
Until now, the area has been used only by bushwalkers, swimmers and hang gliders. Soon it will be available for everyone. Perhaps even one day this could be the spot for a major surf contest. Rebecca Skinner for NBN News.
These 20 hectares of disused land could be turned into a port facility equal to the best in the world. Newcastle Port handles about 38 million tonnes of cargo a year, most of it coal. The Hunter Port Authority believes that this region needs to diversify its import and export business and reduce its reliance on coal.
What we want to see is the port develop to be more broadly based.
What he has in mind is for developers to build facilities to handle and store container cargo, including forestry products, imported cars and car parts and frozen meats. Bruce Thompson says developing the site is in keeping with Australia's overall effort to become more involved in exports, particularly with the opening up of the European market in 1992.
That the full development of the port to its ultimate potential would be many, many millions of dollars.
The Hunter Port Authority is now looking for interested parties to come forward with ideas and hopefully start work on them early next year.
Public housing is in great demand. In Newcastle, 4,500 people are waiting on a 5-year list just to get in. But although accommodation may be scarce, figures released by the Department of Housing show some people are abusing the system. The Amnesty has shown 34 people in the Hunter and New England areas have been living with subsidised rents when they earn above the wage eligible for public housing.
Well, there have been cases where people have been had 2 jobs and only declared 1. There are people where additional people have lived in the house, and additional persons had come to live in the house earning income and they have not declared that.
Warren Kelly, Regional Manager of the Department of Housing, says $23,000 has been recovered in the amnesty, with the tenants paying backdated market rents. The amnesty will end tomorrow, and if tenants don't own up about undeclared finances, they face fines, a possible jail sentence and eviction from their homes.
This may or may not be the tip of the iceberg, we're not certain, but certainly people have been coming forward. It's seen by many as a case of people getting something that they're not really entitled to, and if that is the case, well, it should end.
Meanwhile, figures released by the Australian Real Estate Institute for October show the median price for a house in Newcastle was $100,000, 10% higher than the previous month. This median price, or middle range of the market, is $85,000 below Sydney. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Today's decision was greeted with delight from developers, the Sellers Group, which owns the Falcons basketball team, and the Newcastle Showground and Exhibition Centre Trust. Now it's hoped the development application for the $6.6 million exhibition hall will go before Newcastle Council next week.
All problems and concerns such as noise, pollution, traffic, parking, and of course the zoning side has been set aside now by the court to say we can hold these things here. There's no other hurdle that I know of that will stop it going before council.
But despite a public meeting called by Newcastle's Lord Mayor last week, the residents don't agree that their concerns have been answered.
There's a lot of questions still unanswered, and there will be a lot more.
But if council does approve the proposal, it could only be a matter of months before the stadium is erected here. The original plan was for the Falcons to use the stadium for around 3 years before finding a larger venue. But now it could be longer before Newcastle has its own purpose-built entertainment centre, costing anywhere up to $50 million. Earlier this week, architect Peter Marizecki unveiled his plans for this centre on International Sports Centre grounds. And today it was confirmed by Mr McGeeckie that other architects have been working for several years on a similar facility for either the ISC site or Newcastle Showground on behalf of the Sellers Group. But in the meantime, it's believed this stadium could host such international acts as Torval and Dean and exhibitions like the boat and motor shows, as well as securing the future of Newcastle Showground.
Transport Minister Bruce Baird was present to hear the good news from senior traffic police representing Region North, which extends from Sydney up to the Queensland border. According to the figures, there were 231 deaths on North Region roads this year, which is a drop of 17% on last year. The death toll includes the horrific bus smash at Cowper near Grafton, which claimed 20 lives in one accident. The meeting is a quarterly event, but this one is more significant than most as police prepare for the annual Christmas New Year campaign. The focus will again be on seatbelts, speeding and drink driving. But the year ahead will see police choosing new tactics and bigger campaigns. Trucks will be firmly in police sights with more than 30 enforcement campaigns aimed at them, or more than one a fortnight.
They've got scanners, they've got radar jamming devices, they've got the CB radios, and I think they've had it good for a long time. But I can assure those irresponsible drivers out there in the heavy vehicles and buses that the police in North Region, who are very keen, they're very dedicated, and they will be doing our utmost to detect these offending motorists.
This year saw the revival of the rarely used camouflaged police car. Its success was so strong that police will be basing a campaign on the use of unmarked random model cars and motorbikes.
All unmarked vehicles are camouflaged vehicles. In a way, they're cars which are not easily detected on the road. But also what we're using now, we're using roof racks on cars. I know in other areas they're putting skis on top of vehicles. What we want to try and get through to the motorists, and particularly some of the offenders out there, is to make every car on the road a potential police vehicle.
The Transport Minister used the occasion to congratulate police and to announce $400,000 funding for work on a proposed link road to ease traffic congestion in Maitland.
It's going to provide a direct link from one side to the other without interrupting the normal city streets. So you've got getting heavy traffic and through traffic out of the city. So that's out of the main streets in the city. So that's obviously a direct benefit.
The link road connecting Church Street near Maitland Railway Station to Ken Tubman Drive will provide a direct link to the New England Highway. The funding will be about half the required cost, the rest being met by local government. And further west, the people of Belford are hoping to attract funding for a section of the New England Highway, which they say is a potential killer.
It's the worst section of road from Newcastle to Tamworth, and what we're trying to do is just get a few interested people, some local dignitaries, the Steve Saunders, or Senior Constable Steve Saunders from Singleton Police Station, to come and air their problems with the road and hopefully get some changes in the near future.
In 2 years, the 6-kilometre strip between the South Belford turnoff and the North Belford turnoff has seen about a dozen accidents involving injury to 20 people, 6 of whom were seriously hurt. Member for Hunter Eric Fitzgibbon heard submissions from residents, police and local school bus operators before promising to have the stretch of highway inspected by engineers.